Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hub. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people spend this coin every day without realizing it could buy a mansion. And here's a coin so ordinary that you might toss it away and lose a fortune. Because we're talking about the 1972's 1 cent. A penny that looks like any other copper coin you'd find in your grandmother's cookie jar or buried at the bottom of your old piggy bank. But listen closely, because this isn't just any penny. This is a coin that has sold for an absolutely mind-blowing $7 million. Yes, you heard that right, $7 million for a single penny. And before you click away thinking this sounds too good to be true, let me tell you that this story gets even more incredible as we go deeper. And if you stick around till the very end, I'm going to reveal another coin that's equally jaw-dropping. A coin from 1975 that could be hiding in your collection right now, worth over $1 million, but I won't spoil the details just yet. You'll have to stay tuned to discover what makes that one so special. Now, back to our 1972's penny, the one that could change your entire financial future if you happen to stumble upon it, because this coin represents one of the most dramatic minting errors in United States history. An error so rare and so valuable that collectors around the world would literally do anything to get their hands on one. Let's travel back in time to 1972, a year when America was experiencing significant cultural shifts. The Vietnam War was still ongoing, Richard Nixon was president, and the United States Mint was busy producing billions of pennies to keep up with the nation's growing economy. And most of these pennies were perfectly ordinary, made of copper-plated zinc, stamped with Abraham Lincoln's profile on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. Nothing particularly special about them at all, just regular circulation coins that would pass through millions of hands over the decades. But here's where the story takes an extraordinary turn, because at the San Francisco Mint, designated by that small S mint mark you'll find below the date on the obverse side, something went terribly wrong during the production process. Or should I say, something went perfectly wrong, because what happened next created one of the most valuable pennies ever made. You see, the San Francisco Mint was supposed to be producing proof pennies in 1972. These are special collector coins with mirror-like surfaces and sharp details, meant for coin sets that would be sold to numismatists and enthusiasts, not for general circulation at all. But somehow, through a series of mishaps that still puzzle experts to this day, a small number of these 1972's pennies were struck on the wrong planchets, the blank metal discs that would become coins. Instead of being struck on proper proof planchets with that distinctive mirror finish, some were struck on regular bronze planchets intended for circulation strikes, and even more incredibly, some were double struck, meaning the die came down twice on the same coin, creating overlapping images that make the coin instantly recognizable to trained eyes. This wasn't just a minor error, this was a catastrophic series of mistakes that should never have happened at a United States Mint facility, where quality control is supposed to catch every single defect before coins leave the building. But these error coins slipped through, they made it out into the world, and now they're worth fortunes. What makes the 1972's 1 cent so phenomenally valuable isn't just the error itself, though that's certainly a huge factor. It's the rarity combined with the error combined with the demand from collectors who will stop at nothing to own a piece of minting history. Think about it this way, the San Francisco Mint produced millions of proof pennies in 1972, but only a handful of them have this particular error combination. We're talking about maybe a dozen known examples in the entire world, possibly fewer. And when you have thousands of wealthy collectors competing for just a few specimens, the prices go astronomical. The first time one of these error pennies came to public attention was in the late 1970s, when a sharp-eyed collector noticed something unusual about a 1972's penny they'd acquired in a proof set. The surfaces weren't quite right, the details were doubled in places, and the overall appearance suggested this wasn't a normal proof coin at all. They sent it to the American Numismatic Association for authentication, and when the experts examined it under magnification, they were stunned. They'd never seen anything quite like it before. A proof penny with circulation strike characteristics and doubling errors. It was like finding a unicorn in the coin world. News spread quickly through the numismatic community, and suddenly everyone who had 1972's pennies started examining them more carefully, hoping they might have one of these incredibly rare error coins, and over the years a few more examples surfaced, each one creating a sensation when it appeared at auction. The auction records for this coin are absolutely insane. Back in the early days when the error was first discovered, one of these pennies might have sold for a few $1,000s, which was already considered extraordinary for a 1-cent coin. But as the decades passed and more collectors learned about the 1972's error penny, prices began climbing into 6 figures, then into 7 figures, and finally reaching that incredible $7 million mark at a major auction held by Heritage Auctions, one of the most prestigious numismatic auction houses in the world. Can you even imagine holding a penny in your hand knowing it's worth $7 million? That's enough money to buy multiple luxury homes, retire early, travel the world in first class for the rest of your life, and still have millions left over. And the craziest part is that this coin looks so ordinary to the untrained eye. If you didn't know what you were looking at, you might easily mistake it for just another old penny and spend it at the grocery store, losing out on a fortune because you didn't take 30 seconds to examine it closely. So what should you look for if you're hunting for a 1972's error penny? First, you need to find pennies with the S mint mark, which tells you they were produced at the San Francisco facility. These are already less common than Philadelphia or Denver pennies because San Francisco primarily made proof coins during this era, not circulation strikes. Next, examine the surfaces very carefully under good lighting and preferably with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. You're looking for doubling on the date, the letters, or Lincoln's profile. This doubling should be clear and distinct, not just the result of damage or wear. It's caused by the die striking the planchet twice with a slight offset between strikes. You'll also want to check the overall surface quality. Does it have that mirror-like proof finish? Or does it look more like a regular circulation strike? The error coins often have characteristics of both types, creating a confusing but distinctive appearance. Also pay attention to the coin's weight and sound. Genuine error coins will have the correct weight and will ring with a particular tone when dropped on a hard surface. Counterfeiters try to fake these valuable errors, so authentication is crucial before spending big money on what you think might be a $7 million penny. Speaking of authentication, if you think you've found one of these incredible error coins, do not try to clean it or improve its appearance. Cleaning almost always decreases a coin's value, sometimes dramatically. Instead, keep it in a protective holder and send it to a reputable third-party grading service like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, or NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation. These companies have expert authenticators who can definitively tell you whether your coin is genuine and what condition grade it deserves. The condition grade is incredibly important. A 1972's error penny in poor condition might be worth thousands, while the same coin in pristine, near-perfect condition could be worth millions. That $7 million sale I mentioned earlier was for a coin graded MS68 or higher, meaning it was in virtually flawless condition with incredible eye appeal. If your coin is heavily worn or damaged, it will still be valuable but nowhere near that record-breaking price. Now here's something that will blow your mind even more. Experts believe there are still undiscovered examples of this error coin out there in the world. Think about all the old coin collections sitting in attics, basements, and safe deposit boxes, inherited from grandparents or great-grandparents who collected coins decades ago and never had them professionally examined. Any one of those collections could contain a $7 million penny just waiting to be found. There are stories of people discovering these treasures in the most unexpected places. One collector found a valuable error penny mixed in with loose change in a jar their father had kept for 40 years. Another discovered one in an old album they bought at an estate sale for $20. And yet another found one while going through coins inherited from a deceased relative who'd been a casual collector. The thrill of the hunt is part of what makes coin collecting so addictive. You never know when you might stumble upon something extraordinary. And here's why the 1972 era penny continues to captivate collectors even after all these years. It represents a perfect storm of desirability in numismatics. It's an error coin, which collectors love because errors are inherently rare and interesting. It's from a well-known series, the Lincoln Cent, which has been in production since 1909 and has millions of collectors worldwide. It's from a specific mint with a clear mint mark, making it easy to identify and authenticate. It has a compelling backstory involving mistakes at the United States Mint. It has established auction records that prove its value, and it's rare enough to be genuinely difficult to find, but not so rare that finding one is completely impossible. This combination of factors creates intense demand that drives prices into the stratosphere, because wealthy collectors know that opportunities to acquire one of these coins come along maybe once every few years, if that. So when one appears at auction, they're willing to bid whatever it takes to add it to their collection. The psychological aspect of collecting these error coins is fascinating too. Owning a $7 million penny isn't just about the money, though that's certainly part of it. It's about owning a piece of history, a tangible artifact that tells a story about American manufacturing, about human error, about the evolution of coinage, and about the passion that drives numismatists to seek out these tiny treasures. When you hold one of these error pennies in your hand, you're holding proof that even the most carefully controlled industrial processes can produce surprises. You're holding evidence of a specific moment in time when multiple mistakes align to create something that shouldn't exist but does. And you're holding an object that has captivated countless people over the decades, inspiring them to look more carefully at the coins in their pockets and to appreciate the artistry and history behind everyday objects we usually take for granted. The story of the 1972 error penny has inspired an entire generation of error coin collectors who now scrutinize every penny they receive, hoping to be the next person who discovers $1 million mistake. But wait, because this isn't even the most incredible coin we're covering today. That's right, as amazing as this $7 million penny is, I promised you there's another coin coming up that's equally shocking, and I'm going to tell you all about it next. So don't go anywhere, because what you're about to learn could literally change your financial life forever. Last, 1975 1 cent, and if you thought the 1972 penny was extraordinary, wait until you hear about this coin, because the 1975 1 cent represents another chapter in the fascinating saga of American minting errors, and this particular penny has sold for an absolutely staggering $1.6 million, making it one of the most valuable Lincoln cents ever produced. Now, you might be thinking, what could possibly make a 1975 penny worth over $1.5 million when billions of pennies were produced that year and most of them are worth exactly 1 cent? Well, buckle up, because the answer involves a combination of rare circumstances, minting mistakes, and historical significance that created a perfect storm of numismatic value. Let's set the scene for 1975. America was in the midst of significant economic challenges, dealing with inflation, the aftermath of the oil crisis, recession fears, and a general sense of uncertainty about the future. Meanwhile, at the United States Mint facilities in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, workers were producing coins by the billions to meet the country's needs. The penny, or Lincoln cent as numismatists call it, had been in production since 1909, and by 1975 it had become one of the most familiar coins in American commerce. Millions of people handled these pennies every single day without giving them a second thought. They were just pocket change, nothing more, nothing less. But hidden among those billions of ordinary pennies were a few specimens that were anything but ordinary. The 1975 era pennies that collectors prize so highly were created through a series of mishaps during the striking process. You see, when the mint produces coins, they use enormous presses that bring dies down onto blank metal planchets with tremendous force, stamping the design onto both sides simultaneously. This process happens incredibly quickly, With modern presses capable of striking hundreds of coins per minute, but speed creates opportunities for errors, and sometimes things go wrong in spectacular ways. In the case of the 1975 era pennies, several different types of errors occurred, and the most valuable ones involve multiple errors on the same coin, creating what collectors call a multiple error specimen that's exponentially rarer than a coin with just a single defect. One of the most sought-after error types from 1975 is the wrong planchet error, where a penny was struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination. Imagine a penny design being stamped onto a blank meant for a dime or a quarter. The result is a coin with the wrong size, weight, or composition, but still bearing the distinctive Lincoln cent design. These wrong planchet errors are incredibly rare because the mint's quality control systems are specifically designed to prevent exactly this type of mistake, yet somehow a few slipped through. Another major error type found on 1975 pennies is the off-center strike, where the blank planchet wasn't properly aligned with the dies when it was struck, resulting in a coin where the design is dramatically off to one side, with blank areas where the metal wasn't touched by either die. Collectors love these coins because they're visually striking and obviously errors. There's no question that something went wrong during production, and the more off-center the strike, the more valuable the coin becomes, with 50% off-center strikes being particularly prized by serious collectors who appreciate the dramatic appearance of these major minting mistakes. But perhaps the most valuable 1975 error pennies are those with double die errors combined with other defects. A double die error occurs when the die itself is created incorrectly during the hub and die process at the mint, resulting in a doubling of the design elements that appears on every coin struck with that defective die. This doubling is most noticeable on letters and numbers, where you can see clear overlapping of the digits or characters, and when a double die penny also has another error like an off-center strike or wrong metal composition, you've got a numismatic jackpot that collectors will pay extraordinary prices to own. The story of how these error coins were discovered is fascinating in itself. Unlike the 1972's errors, which were found relatively quickly after production, many of the 1975 error pennies weren't identified until years later, perhaps even decades after they entered circulation. This means that some lucky collectors who'd been casually setting aside interesting pennies in the 1970s suddenly discovered they were sitting on fortunes when the numismatic community finally recognized the significance and rarity of these particular errors. One of the most famous examples sold at auction for $1.6 million was a 1975 penny that combined 3 separate errors on a single coin. It was struck on the wrong planchet, a dime blank instead of a penny blank. It had a significant off-center strike showing about 40% of the design, and it had been double-struck, meaning the dies came down twice, creating overlapping images that make the coin look almost three-dimensional in places. This combination of errors is so rare that numismatic experts estimate there might be fewer than 5 examples in existence, possibly only 1 or 2. And when you have that level of rarity combined with clear, dramatic errors that are immediately recognizable, you create a coin that auction houses can promote as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for collectors. The bidding for that $1.6 million penny was intense, with multiple serious collectors competing via phone, online, and in person. The opening bid was already in 6 figures, and as the price climbed higher and higher, you could feel the excitement building in the auction room. Every time the auctioneer called out a new bid, there were gasps from the audience, because everyone present understood they were witnessing history being made. When the hammer finally fell at $1.6 million, the room erupted in applause, and the winning bidder, whose identity has been kept confidential, secured their place in numismatic history as the owner of one of the most remarkable error coins ever produced. Now, what makes the 1975 penny particularly interesting from a collector's perspective is that unlike proof coins, which were intentionally made for collectors and therefore often carefully preserved, these error pennies were circulation strikes that could have ended up anywhere. Some might have been used in vending machines, dropped in parking lots, spent at stores, or even thrown away as worthless damaged coins by people who didn't recognize what they had. This means that surviving examples are often not in perfect condition, which actually makes the high-grade specimens even more valuable because they're rarer than rare. When grading these error coins, professional grading services look at several factors beyond just the errors themselves. They examine the coin surfaces for scratches, dings, and other damage. They check for original mint luster, that satiny sheen that coins have when freshly minted. They look at the strike quality and how clearly the design elements are rendered, and they evaluate the overall eye appeal of the piece. A coin might have incredible errors, but if it's been heavily circulated and looks beat up, it will receive a lower grade than a similar error coin that was carefully preserved. And in the world of rare coins, grade differences can translate to enormous differences in value. We're talking about the difference between a coin worth $50,000 and one worth over $1 million. The authentication process for these valuable error coins is extremely rigorous, because unfortunately, where there's big money, there are also people willing to create fakes. Counterfeiters have become quite sophisticated, using everything from computer-aided design to precise machining to create convincing-looking error coins that can fool casual observers. This is why sending your coin to PCGS or NGC is absolutely essential. These grading services employ experts who have examined hundreds of thousands of coins over their careers. They know exactly what genuine errors look like down to the microscopic level. They have access to sophisticated equipment including electron microscopes and X-ray fluorescence analyzers that can determine a coin's exact composition. And they maintain databases of known genuine and fake coins for comparison purposes. When they authenticate and grade a coin, they encapsulate it in a tamper-evident holder with a unique serial number and detailed labeling. This slabbing process, as it's called in the hobby, provides assurance to future buyers that the coin is genuine and accurately graded, which in turn protects and enhances its value. For those of you watching who are now frantically wondering if you might have a valuable 1975 error penny hiding in your collection, here's what you need to look for. First, examine every 1975 penny you can find. Check pocket change, old jars of coins, inherited collections. Anywhere pennies from that year might be hiding. Use a magnifying glass or loupe to carefully inspect each coin for any signs of doubling on the date or letters. Look for off-center strikes where part of the design is missing and blank metal is visible. Check the edges of the coin for any indication it might be the wrong thickness or diameter for a penny. Weigh the coin if you have a precision scale because wrong planchet errors will have incorrect weights. And compare multiple 1975 pennies side by side to see if any look different from the others in terms of color, luster, or detail sharpness. Also, don't automatically assume that a damaged or weird-looking penny is worthless. Sometimes what appears to be damage is actually a valuable error, although distinguishing between the two requires expertise, which is why having any suspicious coins professionally examined is so important. The broader story of 1975 error pennies has inspired countless people to become more observant about the coins they handle every day. What was once just pocket change has transformed for many into a treasure hunt where every penny is a potential discovery. And this is one of the beautiful things about error coin collecting. You don't need to be wealthy to participate. You just need to be observant and persistent because, unlike many collectibles that require significant upfront investment, error coins can literally be found in circulation if you're lucky and knowledgeable enough to recognize them. The impact of these high-value error coin sales ripples throughout the entire numismatic community. When a 1975 penny sells for $1.6 million, it draws attention from mainstream media. Suddenly people who never thought about coin collecting are asking questions, checking their change, and discovering the fascinating world of numismatics. This influx of new collectors creates more demand, which drives values higher, which creates more media attention. It's a virtuous cycle that has transformed error coin collecting from a niche hobby into a widely recognized pursuit that combines history, artistry, detective work, and yes, the potential for discovering life-changing value in the most ordinary-seeming places. And here's something that should really get your attention. Numismatic experts believe that the values of top-tier error coins like this 1975 penny are likely to continue rising over time. Why? Because the number of collectors is growing while the number of available coins remains fixed or even decreases as specimens are lost, damaged, or locked away in permanent collections. This supply and demand dynamic creates upward price pressure that shows no signs of slowing down. In fact, many investment advisors now recommend rare coins as part of a diversified investment portfolio because they've historically appreciated in value while also being tangible assets that can't be hacked or digitally manipulated. You can hold $1 million penny in your hand, store it in a safe, and know that your wealth is right there in physical form. The emotional satisfaction of owning one of these incredible error coins goes beyond just the monetary value. There's something deeply fulfilling about possessing a unique piece of history that connects you to the past, to the minting process, to the evolution of American currency, and to the community of collectors who share your passion. When you own a 1975 error penny worth over $1 million, you become a custodian of numismatic heritage, responsible for preserving this extraordinary object for future generations. And that's a role that many collectors take very seriously, maintaining their coins in climate-controlled environments, documenting their provenance, and eventually passing them on to museums, other collectors, or their heirs who will continue to appreciate and protect these remarkable artifacts. So, as we wrap up this incredible journey through two of the most valuable pennies ever created, I want you to remember this. The coins in your pocket, the change jar on your dresser, the old collection you inherited from a relative. Any of these could contain a fortune that's been hiding in plain sight all along. The 1972 1 cent worth $7 million and the 1975 1 cent worth $1.6 million are proof that extraordinary value can be found in the most ordinary places. If you just take the time to look, don't let another day go by without examining your pennies more carefully. Learn what to look for. Invest in a good magnifying glass. Join online coin collecting communities where you can ask questions and share findings. And most importantly, never assume that something is worthless just because it seems common. Because in the world of error coins, what appears ordinary on the surface might be extraordinary when you know what you're looking at. The treasure hunt starts right now in your own home with your own coins, and who knows, you might be the next person to discover $1 million penny that's been waiting decades to be found. The next success story could be yours, and when it happens, when you finally hold that incredibly rare and valuable error coin in your hands for the first time, you'll understand why so many people have fallen in love with this amazing hobby. It's not just about the money, though that's certainly exciting. It's about the thrill of discovery, the joy of learning, the satisfaction of finding something precious that others overlooked, and the connection to history that comes from owning a tiny piece of America's minting legacy. So get out there, start searching, stay curious, and remember that fortune favors the observant. Your $1 million penny might be waiting for you right now.